YouTube, you can see. But as you can see, we're not at Old Town Barbershop. It's been a week, and we weren't able to get together. So here we are. We're recording, kind of like in the past, on a Wednesday night, burning the midnight oil. We're going to do this next week, too, because I'm not in town. But go ahead.
I was thinking about maybe I'll ask Corey if I can just kind of break into his shop um, next week late at night and flip on the lights and at least half of us will be from Old Town Barber. We appreciate Corey doing everything that he does for us, and yeah, we're sad that we're not there right now, but happy to be doing the podcast and doing it old school, especially from Fort Thompson here in Tazewell, the recording studio formerly known as Josh's house, now is owned by two small children.
I understand that. Mine's only owned by one.
Well, mine's partially owned by two, and thank God they're asleep. That's why we're doing it so late.
That's right. All right. Week 4 of Southwestern Mountain 7 Sports. If you're watching us, we appreciate you for watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us, that means you're on Apple or Spotify. While you're there, subscribe to us, like us, share us, give us a review. That helps with the algorithm, and we really would appreciate that. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Appa Bagworks, Old Town Barbershop, and Andrew Scruggs, attorney at law in Bluefield, Virginia. Before we get into anything going on this week, Josh, do you have any hot takes from last week?
Gosh, I think the hot take of the entire week is we might have to really rethink what the Mountain 7 is this year. I think Graham has had a stranglehold on Region D for the past 5 or 6, 7, 8 years. But the Mountain 7 is as strong as I've ever seen it, especially given the fact that Gate City plays as well as they did against Abingdon and really kept Abingdon in check and kept them at arm's length the entire time. I was surprised at that. I thought Abingdon would play better. Maybe Abingdon had somewhat of a hangover after beating up on Christiansburg, a team that's kind of been a thorn in their side in some way, shape, or form the past 3 or 4 years, especially once they've gotten into the playoffs in 3A. So it was really, the hot take is Gate City is a contender in the Mountain 7, and the Mountain 7 is by far the strongest that we've seen them since we've started doing the podcast.
Mm-hmm. And with you saying that, I also think we also have to look at Southwest District. We know Lebanon and VHI are strong. What's Richlands going to do? Can Richlands move up to 2 or 3?
I think we do have to look at the Southwest in a different way too. Lebanon, they're averaging a ton of points a game. Virginia High's really not that far behind them in terms of offensive output. I think that Virginia High's played a little bit of a tougher schedule, but I think Virginia High last week winning 40-10 over George Wythe was a statement being made by the kids there in Bristol that they were not the same team over the past 5 or 6 years that could be hit or miss, that they're really gelling and doing the right things and playing as well as they possibly could early in the season. You also have to think that we have to rethink what the Southwest District looks like because Graham is 0-2 and
High 3-0.
yeah, Virginia has 3-0. Lebanon's undefeated right now, and Graham would have well, I guess Graham does have a win. They have a forfeit, but they haven't played a game that they haven't played a game that they've looked good in, and they have an opportunity coming up, but not until after Princeton.
Right. We'll talk about that game next week, but I guess we'll see what the Tigers do before then. But
Exactly.
realistically, Graham could be 1-3 and then heading into district play.
Right, which just absolutely changes the thought process. And that's why I say whether or not the Southwest District was strong or not, there was always Graham at the top of it over the past, 5 or 6 years. And you knew that they were going to compete for a region championship, or at least the region championship was going to have to run through Bluefield in some way, shape, or form, right?
Right.
But gosh, you could pick you could pick, Ridgeview, Union, or Gate City and make an easy case that they are by far better than Graham right now.
I agree. So there's your hot takes brought to you by Appa Bag Works. If you're looking for something nice, handcrafted, look him up on Instagram. Check out some of his stuff on his page. He's got a fall lineup coming up. Also run by, I just forgot the name of it,
Bohemian. Yeah.
On Main Street in Tazewell. They have some of his stuff in stock. So go support Appa Bag Works. Now let's head into this week's matchups in week 4, starting with something that I would say it could be the game of the week because it's going to be two tough teams playing each other. But I really don't know if this could be a lopsided game. You have John Battle traveling to Wise to take on the Central Warriors. So when I say a lopsided game, Wise beats Marion last week, loses to Ridgeview 48-14. But the week before they beat Marion in Marion. I think Wise is a better team than John Battle. Is Battle able to put more than 14 points up? Because we know Central Wise can score in the 20s now. So is Battle able to even cross that threshold? I don't think they are. And clearly I think Wise wins this one 24-7.
Okay. I think that this could have been the game of the week. I don't know if it's, like I've said before, I don't know if this is going to be the best football that's being played, but I think it's going to be a really close game. I think it's going to be a lot closer than what you think it's going to be. I know Battle's 0-3 right now, but they showed some serious life last week against Holston. And I said going into the Holston game for Battle that Holston was a good football team, and I thought that given kind of the success that Holston has had over the past 3 or 4 years, or even 4 or 5 years, that you can build some. I don't want to say generational, but from class to class to class, a lot of confidence, and that was something that I didn't think Battle had. But I thought when Battle got down, I thought it was going to be just another, just absolute, walking the dog of Battle again, and they did their namesake proud and battled back and really showed some heart and scored a lot of points. They scored into the 30s.
I should have looked
Um,
at my notes because it was 44-38 Holston. So yeah, they scored 38 points on Holston.
right. But Holston was also up like 30, 31 to, I think they were up 31 to 6 or 7, or maybe 31-14 at one point. And I was like, well, it's over. And then I checked back and, it's like 38-35 or some crazy score like that. So I think Battle is kind of trending in the right direction, if you can consider one game a trend, because I'm taking Central, and I think we're both taking Central in this trending of playing better. But they got beat 48-14 last week by Ridgeview, and it's almost like that was an anomaly in the whole thought process, because we keep going back to Marion, because we're like, well, they beat Marion on the road. They scored points as the first time they'd scored points all season. Marion hadn't scored any points either, and they win 19-7. I I think that the perception of Central is better than Battle, but I really think that Battle showed some confidence and some life in a team that was 0-2 and was getting beat down by a smaller school that's inside the same county. You know, it's kind of like if you were 0-2 and you were playing Pocahontas in Tazewell County, and you go down big and you're like, oh my gosh, even the little school is beating us up, and I could see kids not wanting to play hard. That's not what happened with Battle. So I I really like Battle, and I like the fight that they showed last week. Can they make it a trend, and can they show that they can battle tough for a second week in a row? Battle 21, Central 22.
Ooh. All right. So now let's travel into Russell County, where Royal Retreat, and I'm going to do like I used to and give you the scores from last week so I don't screw up like I just did. Royal Retreat took on Eastside last week, a team that looks like they're going to have a strong push into the playoffs. That's a 36-35 ball game with Eastside winning. They traveled to Lebanon to take on the Pioneers, who absolutely destroyed Marion 53-22.
They did destroy Marion, but Marion scored 22 points, which
Are these JV points?
that's exactly what I'm thinking. Like, what I know what the score was early in the third quarter, and I'm just sitting there going, did Marion just tack on a couple of points late when Lebanon's kind of clearing the bench midway through the fourth? Here's some stats for Lebanon. Lebanon's averaging 48 points, 48 flat points a game. And we know about their offense. The question has been their defense, and that's why I bring up the fact that Marion scored 22 points. Was that was that because Lebanon was clearing the bench, or was that because Lebanon's just still not that good on defense, no matter who's out there?
Right.
Stat of the week for Rural Retreat is they're averaging 40.3 points a game. So you've got two teams that are averaging better than 40 points a game. And with the exception of last week, statistically speaking, Rural Retreat has a better defense, although their strength of record is certainly not as tough as Lebanon's. I think, and we can go back to the first year that we did the podcast. Rural Retreat played Honaker at the end of the season and almost beat Honaker. And we thought that Honaker was by far the best team in Region D. They go into the playoffs the very next week and play Honaker again. And we're like, well, Honaker was kind of had it all wrapped up. Rural Retreat kind of gave them what they could. Second week, it's hard to do it again. Honaker will walk over them. And Rural Retreat almost beat Honaker again. So that's a couple years ago. Well, Rural Retreats in the playoffs again last year. And they got beat to death by Rye Cove, but a lot of teams got beat to death by Rye Cove. We're talking about a team that can play good ball and have been in the playoffs before. And then they go to Eastside, who I think is probably the best team in Region D going into last week over Rye Cove at this point because of the schedule. And they lose to Eastside 36-35, which then in turn makes me think that the biggest sleeper in 1D is Rural Retreat. By far the biggest sleeper in 1D is Rural Retreat. Something in the statistics offensively has got to give. Either Lebanon's defense is as bad as we're telling you, or Rural Retreat's defense is as good as we're telling you, even though they played weaker teams. It's not about who's going to score the most points. It's about who's going to make the biggest stops late in the game. This is classic Indians and Pioneers. Rural Retreat 35, Lebanon 42.
35-42. Since we're not standing, I'm actually writing them down like I have in the past. So, again, if you get on anything on Instagram or Facebook or listen to other podcasts, go ahead and give the season ending awards to Mike Reese. Mike Reese is already committed to UVA Wise. I'm not taking anything away from the kid. Kid's a good ball player. And we know 44 in the backfield, good ball player. But the thing we've always known about Lebanon is skill positions. Do they have enough? Offensive line, it doesn't seem like it's doing the job like it did last year, even though they graduated some guys. We understand that. I really want to see what the Pioneers do when they get into V High and Graham. But on the other hand, you talk about these little schools, Rye Cove, East Side, Royal Retreat, and they're playing single A teams. They're still building up confidence because of the record. But now they're going to play somebody. Can they control Lebanon's offense late into the game, into the third and fourth quarter? This is probably going to be a close game at half. I wouldn't be surprised if whoever gets the ball last going into half, you could say, well, Royal Retreat's winning this. What's going on? And then the Pioneers pull away. I want to pick the upset just because Rock Cove, Eastside, and Royal Retreat look good. But I think it's close. I agree with you. I'm going to say 38-35 Lebanon.
Well, here's the thing about it. I agree with you in the sense the halftime score might be whoever had the ball last, gets a chance to score, and that's who's got the lead at halftime. I'm not worried about the offenses in this game. I think both offenses are going to be extremely efficient. I think they're going to score points. It's just going to come down to which defense is going to make a timely stop. And it may come down to, does someone have a dumb penalty somewhere that kills a drive, in the first half that causes, gives Lebanon the opportunity to go up by 2 scores, right? And then you're just playing catch up the entire time, and that gives Lebanon's defense to look a little bit better than what they are because now you're a little less balanced. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good game. It was definitely a game that I thought of for the game of the week. I think we have a good one in that too. But I think this will be a great game. If you're wanting to see some points, then a trip to Russell County, the county seat of Lebanon, might be a great place to do it. And then we say that, and it'll be like 17-12.
Or 72-2.
It'll be like Narrows and Chilhowie. Was it Narrows and Chilhowie a couple years ago? It was 72-56 or something like that.
Yeah. All right. So this one's not a game at all. I hate to say that. We're talking about high school kids. It's a terrible thing to say, but the Marion Scarlet Hurricanes, which just throw it out there. I really love their logo. I think it's a great logo. And then their colors just make it work. I'm not a red fan, but I like their logo. That's besides the point. I've said that before. So we know that Lebanon just played them 53-22. They're going to take on Gate City, who just upset your number one pick, the Abingdon Falcons, 28-17.
Right. So if we're going to talk about this in terms of competitiveness, on paper, I think that, and given the data set that we have to this point, you'd have to sit there and say this isn't going to be a game. And I don't fault you whatsoever for saying that. And another way you could think about this is this a trap game for Gate City? You've just come off a big win against Abingdon. A couple years ago, Abingdon or Marion and Gate City were neck and neck for the 4th and 5th seeds, and ended up playing again in the playoffs. And Marion should have beat Gate City at Gate City that year. I think the final score was like 22-19. But man, have the two gone in opposite directions, however you want to look at it. Gate City's certainly taken off. And just the fact that Gate City's 2-1 and their one loss is to the largest school in Tennessee to the tune of 28-20, it's still, I'm still trying to reconcile that, but at the same time, that's a known trend once you have beaten one of the better schools, the Region 1 seed, or Region 3D 1 seed in Abingdon last year. So you could look at it as a trap game just because Gate City could just be overlooking a horrible Marion squad that just can't put points on the board, with the exception of playing Lebanon. I don't think that's the case. Gate City 42, Marion 12.
I just want to let you know I wrote my score down before you said it. So I saw Gate City live in person against Richlands. I'm impressed by them. I didn't know at the time how impressed I would be, but seeing Richlands being able to hold their own against a couple of people, winning against Lee last week, handedly against Lee, not just beating Lee, and then seeing what they did against Dobbins Bennett, and then Abingdon. Gate City, if they can beat Union or Ridgeview, they're going to be a handful. And this game, as you said, is not played in Marion. It's played at Legion Field. When you go to Legion Field, go ahead and give Gate City 7 points anyways. Gate City with that atmosphere, I don't know how many is going to travel from Marion to Gate City. I like the Blue Devils in this one 42-6.
Yeah, this will be more whether or not Gate City will call off the dogs early. And no, I think the Marion crowd isn't going to travel. It's going to be parents. And when you go to Gate City, you're swarmed by all that blue. And now that they've played as well as they have against Dobbins Bennett and then beaten Abingdon, that place is only going to get more and more raucous as the season goes on. The only way that place doesn't get raucous is if someone has to beat them there.
Right.
That because and then they'll take the show on the road too. They'll travel.
Mhm.
They'll travel in droves. It's bad news for the rest of the place if Gate City starts playing well.
So if you're like Marion and you're getting ready to get beat up, black and blue, you might need an attorney. This would be a good time to go and give Andrew Scruggs a call. Criminal defense attorney out of Bluefield, Virginia. Does great professional work in the courtroom. If you need an attorney, give Andrew Scruggs a call. All right, with that being said, black and blue, you got the Union Bears who just upset Graham at Tazewell 28-7. They're coming to take on the Bulldogs in Tazewell, so they will make 2 trips to Bulldog Stadium, where we lost at Bulldog Stadium to Grayson County 45-3. I don't think there's, it's bad to say, I don't think there's any hope on the green side in this game at all. Best thing we could do is keep the score low. Defense does play well, but they're going to get tired. The human bowling ball in the backfield, I didn't think he would do that against Graham, and he eventually just wore him down and racked up over 100 yards against Graham. He had a drive at one point in the first half of 77 yards, and they hadn't even scored yet. It was all him, 77 yards. The pass game against Graham did not impress me, but their pass game against Taz was going to be totally different. This game could be ugly. I mean, a team that had less players than us put 45 on us. Bright side on our side is we got a kicker. He made a great kick. I want to say it was 35. And it had some more leg. He could have kicked it from 40. So bright side is we got a kicking game. I just don't know if we're going to put it in the end zone. On my side, the Union Bears upset. They don't upset. There's no upset in this. The Union Bears beat us 35-0.
So 2 years ago, and when I say we, Tazewell, and I was coaching with Tazewell at the time, we traveled down to Union and go into the fourth quarter with the opportunity to tie or take the lead late in the fourth quarter in the second round of the playoffs after we had hung half 100 on Ridgeview. A lot of the kids on the sidelines are playing in that game 2 years ago for Union are playing in this game. And there ain't a lot of players from Tazewell playing in this game that played in that game 2 years ago. Tazewell plays inspired defense. But it doesn't matter how inspired your defense is if they have to play 80 snaps, 90 snaps a game, because your offense is only getting 30 snaps a game. They're getting 10 drives and 10 3 and outs. On average in a football game, you would think that there's going to be anywhere from 60 to 65 plays per side, an average of 120 to 130 plays per game, not counting special teams like kickoffs and PATs and things like that. Given that thought process, if Tazewell's only averaging about 35 to 40 snaps a game on offense, the rest of those snaps to get to 130 are going to the other team. So just by default, your defense is going to give up points. The difference this year between Tazewell this year and years past is Tazewell's not averaging 45 points a game or having the opportunity or having an offense that could at any one point in time score 22 points in 6 minutes in a fourth quarter and beat you, right? Richlands figured that out as well. Fort Chiswell figured it out as well. We scored 19 points in the final, like 5.5 minutes of the game, and ended up beating them by 2 touchdowns. So, as inspired and as as hard as you can play on defense, it's going to be tough when you're giving up that many, when you're having to defend that many snaps. Union is Union. We know that. They're aggressive. They're going to put points on the board. That doesn't bode well for a Tazewell team that has given up points by default and can't score any points. Union 52, Tazewell 6, and those 6 points are 2 field goals.
All right. A game that could be game of the week. There's just a game that was just a tad bit bigger than this one. The Abingdon Falcons, as we told you, who lost 28-7 to Gate City last week, travels to Richlands to take on the Blue Tornado, who beat Lee 42-14. Now, Abingdon is 2-1. 2-1. Richlands is 1-2. But their losses are impressive losses. They're not the losses that we have seen in the past with Richlands. They were still in the game, and they were still battling at the end. If they can get a run game figured out, this could be a ball game.
Well, here's the thing about this game, and you can look at it as, where's Abingdon trending, where's Richlands trending. I think that there's probably a lot of confidence in Richlands, just given the fact that they can score points. Their offense the past few years, with the exception of playing against Tazewell a couple of years ago, has been anemic. And that's being polite about it. I mean, there were times 2 years ago or last year where I really thought that it would be the worst offensive outputting team in Richlands history.
Looked like the first 4 games.
Oh, they couldn't score. They couldn't even sniff the end zone. Much like a Tazewell squad this year. And then you look at Abingdon, and they're coming off a loss to Gate City at Gate City. I think we might need to put that loss in perspective, given the fact that Gate City travels across the state line to Kingsport, plays Dobbins Bennett. They lose, but it's 28-20. They play really well, in it the entire way. And they kept Abingdon at arm's length. Now, like you said before with Gate City, playing at Legion Field, spot them 7 points. Well, if you spot Gate City 7 points because they're playing there, then realistically, Abingdon only lost by 3 points, right? It's a 10-point game or 11-point game, 28-17, I believe was the score. So you're talking about a 1-score game if you're not spotting, if you spot them some points. So, Abingdon, you could look at Abingdon as saying they're kind of trending in the wrong direction. They were scoring points. They weren't able to score points. It's the first time they've been held under 20 points this year. I think the sample size is still small enough to where you're not quite sure what's going on, especially given the rise of Gate City. Now, if you look at what Gate City did to Richlands and what Gate City did with Abingdon, that's their mutual opponent. Abingdon has a little bit of a lead in terms of they played at Gate City, and it's a 2-score football game, whereas Gate City kept Richlands at basically a 3-score football game the entire time. I just wonder why Abingdon's offense sputtered. And I didn't keep up with it. And I haven't really read about it, so I don't know if they turned the ball over. I don't know why that's happening. Maybe it's just because Gate City's pretty good. Well, Richlands scored more points against Gate City's defense than Abingdon did. Granted, that's on turf at Richlands as opposed to on the grass in the slick. What?
So Richlands throws 2 picks.
That's true too. Yes. So that matters a lot too. I'm just trying to figure out why Abingdon's offense sputtered. So one thing I do know is Richlands can score points. One thing I also know is Richlands defense can't stop anybody really when it comes down to it. And I said at the beginning of the season that I thought that Richlands' ultimate success was going to come down to their defense and whether or not they could tackle and they could stop people. Well, maybe that's the crutch that's keeping them from getting over the top. I'm not sure if it matters that much this week because I've got a sputtering Abingdon team coming in. Abingdon, 28. Richlands, unfortunately, 24.
So wearing the green, I never thought I would pick Richlands as much as I have this year. But both of these teams are blue and white, so it really doesn't matter. The thing is, Abingdon's playing young, losing their quarterback. I go back to say that they have the tight end that is going to UNC, so there's some size there. But there's a lot of size down in Gate City too, and that size seemed to be a problem for Abingdon. Richlands was in the ball game with Gate City until number 8 broke loose. If Winter Boyd can figure out how to become a factor in this game, and then Landon, I can't remember Landon's last name, if he becomes a factor on the other side, then Richlands, by all means, could be in this game. But again, Abingdon's 3A. More kids in that school, more kids on that sideline. But I don't think that matters in this game. It's played at Ernie Hicks Stadium. The R is starting to feel a little bit of momentum coming their way. And if you give them any momentum, sometimes they take it and they run with it. I like the Blue Tornado in this one, 21-20.
So it's a pick'em game. Both of us are thinking it's close.
Yeah.
Watch it be like 56-55.
Watch it be 56-12.
It could be.
Now we're going to move into our game of the week. So we talked about this one, but I agree, hands down, Tennessee High, who took on
Cott County.
No,
Cott County.
Cott County. I couldn't read it there for a second. They beat them 35-0. So Tennessee High's got some momentum coming into this game, and they're taking on V High, who is 3-0. I'm gonna fix my mistake. However, I got to. They don't have a loss. They're 3-0. Okay, and they just beat GW 40-10, or it was 40-0. I'll check that, but they put 40 on George Wythe.
Yeah, 40-10, 40-0. Either way, they walked the dog with George Wythe. Is Virginia High 3-0 or 4-0? I know they played Richlands in week 0, so I keep trying to figure out.
They had
what
open week, not a bye week, an open week in the midst of this.
Okay, good deal. Tennessee High does have some momentum coming into this game, which is good for them because they were 0-3 before last week with losses to the likes of Westridge, which is that massively large high school in Sullivan County on 81 when you go by there and you're like, where are we, Texas? They also lost to Elizabethton, which is a large 4A school. Tennessee High is actually 5A. They have 1,800 students at Tennessee High, 18 to 2,000 students. Um, Elizabethton is a large 4A school. It was actually a really, really good ball game. And then they also lost to Science Hill, which is like the fourth largest school in Tennessee. Just the fact that Tennessee High just has to play some of these schools, and perennially Tennessee High is not as good as some of these other schools because they're playing in such um, a large classification. It's super competitive once you get across the state line in Northeast Tennessee with Greenville and Elizabethton and Dobbins Bennett and Science Hill, who are some of the biggest schools in Tennessee, and then Tennessee High is having to play Morristown and Sevier County, and it's really tough for Tennessee High. And then they're able to go down to Newport, Tennessee, and play the Gamecocks of Cocke County, and which is a great mascot given the fact that at the University of Tennessee, when I was there, we had a fraternity house get uh, thrown off campus because they're having cockfights in the basement, and like every Friday night they would have a guy from Cocke County, Tennessee. He'd bring his roosters in there, and they'd fight them up and bet on them. It was like little Pomona um, underneath the Sig Ep house. So with all that being said about Tennessee High, you've got some momentum. You're a big school, but that didn't translate for Dobbins Bennett and Gate City. Virginia High's 3-0. They're undefeated. They just beat up on a George Witt team that is perennially really good. Um, I think there's three keys to success for both of these teams, and they're the same. One is kind of handle the overall pressure of the beginning of the game. Um, I was I privately coached the quarterback at Tennessee High, gosh, years ago, and I remember they were getting ready to play Virginia High, and it was a really big game for Virginia High. It was actually played at Virginia High, and for whatever reason, Tennessee High didn't take it as serious. I think Tennessee High will this year because they're only 1-3, and Virginia High is undefeated at this point. So I think there's going to be some stress level, and you don't want to overcook yourself early and make mistakes. And that leads into the second part. Don't make mistakes. Don't turn the ball over. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. And I guess you could say that a lot of these keys are for any football team playing anybody at any given time. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot, and you don't want to turn the ball over. General Nealon said the team that makes the fewest mistakes will win. And he also said protect the ball, our lead in our ball game. So you have to do those things in order to be successful in the football field. So, those are the two main keys I think that both Virginia High and Tennessee High need to be aware of and handle. The third one I think is Tennessee High needs to control the football. They need to keep Virginia High's offense off the field. The less Virginia High can snap the ball, the less they can score. When Virginia High does have the football, they need to make them snap it over and over again. And when they get a chance to get off the field on third down. For Virginia High, they need to strike hard, strike fast. They need to do it. They need to score points early and make it known to Tennessee High that you're here and you're not going away. Don't give Tennessee High a chance to breathe. If you can strike early, do it. Points in the first quarter are always at a premium in big games. They don't always translate to wins. Ask Tennessee. They scored a lot of points in the first quarter and did not win. But because they scored a lot of points in the first quarter, it was a much more competitive football game. I think that's what Virginia High has to do. So Tennessee has to keep Virginia High out of the end zone in the first quarter by ball control, and Virginia High needs to be in the end zone in order to be successful in this game. Virginia High's averaging 38.5 points a game, and Tennessee High hadn't come close to that. And I like little brother in this one. Tennessee High 21, V High 35.
35-21. So I looked at scores, and as you've already went over, Tennessee High's played big competition. The High has played George Wythe, Patrick Henry, and there was somebody else. I don't remember who the third one was.
Richlands.
Richlands. So 1 2A team, 2 single A, while the other school's playing 5A and 4A. Still don't think that matters. V-High's got a lot of speed. They look just like they did last year, but it looks like they've improved off of that. So in the Old Town Barbershop, I forgot to say that, in the Old Town Barbershop game of the week, I am taking V-High 28-21.
I think it's a close game. I picked 35 because I just felt like I don't know if Virginia High gets to their average, but I think Tennessee High does. I think Virginia High gets close enough to their average to score 35 points, and their average is 38.5. And I think Virginia High is 4-0. I think that they beat Battle too. So Richlands Battle, Patrick Henry, George Wythe.
Score stream just showed the 3. So if they beat Battle, that would be 4.
But either way, they're averaging 38 points a game, and I think the average rings true in this one because I just feel like V High's got some serious confidence going on right now, and they're playing good football. They're also not doing what they normally do, which is turn the ball over.
Let's not say that.
It's amazing what happens when you don't give the ball to the other team.
That's right. So with all that being said, let's talk a little bit really quick about Rye Cove, and then we're going to get to Josh's favorite team. So we talk a lot about 2A. Southwest is eat up with 2A and single A with only one AAA. And we talk about that AAA team, right? But Holnaker would be in this discussion, but their wide receiver went down. I don't know when he's coming back, but they haven't fared well in the last couple of games. Grundy's not doing too hot. Next year, they're not even going to be single A. They'll be double A. They'll be in the Southwest District as South Side, right?
Is this possibly, I guess.
South something Golden Eagles. There you go.
South Gap.
South Gap Golden Eagles next year. But Rye Cove is in a benefit game against Lord Botetourt. But since then, they've rolled off wins against Grundy 61-14 and Holnaker 48-28. You have Eastside, who is still rolling. You got Grayson County, who's still winning. And then you got Rural Retreat. So if you're in single A and you listen to our podcast or you're interested in single A, there's your 4 teams. Those are the ones that's going to go to playoffs you need to pay attention to.
Well, here's the best part about us, kind of having George Wythe and Grayson County, because that's Region C. And then you've got Region D and Rural Retreat, even though they're right there with George Wythe. That's Rural Retreats Region D. George Wythe is Region C. George Wythe is in a totally different district than Rural Retreat is. They're literally about 7 miles apart on 81. But you know, we get a larger swath of single A teams and get into Region C where we don't really do that with 2A. I mean, 2A Region C is way on down the road. So
this makes me smile. Riverhead takes on Smith Mountain Lake Christian Academy, and they win 49-0. They played Stewart's Draft last week, 29-13 Stewart's Draft. And we talk about this team a lot. You heard about Essex last year because they won state. They beat Grayson County. But there's the one team that I have a little soft spot for just because I like their name that played Essex, Alta Vista.
Yeah.
They got a little revenge during the regular season against Riverheads and beat them 29-25. So everybody talking about Riverhead, Alta Vista and Essex, one of these teams over here in Rye Cove or East Side or Grayson, they still might be able to pull the upset on Riverhead.
Hey, here's another interesting thing too. So we talk about how some of the teams in our area kind of go flip flop back and forth between single A and double A. Well, that doesn't just happen between single A and double A. It happens between double A and triple A too. So 2A and 3A. Well, there's a school in Richmond that has come down to 2A from 3A. And it's Thomas Jefferson. And it ought to be said right now that there's a good chance that Thomas Jefferson is a team that everyone's going to end up knowing in double A here really soon. The fun part about it is that Richmond school may have to deal with far, far southwest Virginia in the Mountain 7 right now because the Mountain 7 looks like it quite possibly could be the toughest district in the state of Virginia in 2A. So we'll keep an eye out on Thomas Jefferson, and I'll give you a rundown of Thomas Jefferson in the coming weeks about what's going on with them. But they're a team out there on the other side of the state that a lot of schools that were 2A that didn't like the fact that they somehow became 2A. They're in Petersburg.
So
I think it's Thomas.
They played
The Vikings.
They played IC Norcom, the Greyhounds, beat them 14-0. They played Armstrong, who are the Wildcats. That's out of Richmond, 21-14 Armstrong. And they just played Amelia County, the Raiders. That's a little county school, isn't it? They're not big. That's 44-0. This week they play Hopewell, the Blue Devils.
Yeah, so IC Norcom, I think, is 5A, and I think Hopewell is either 4A. I think they're 4A. Amelia is the only school that's kind of comparable to TJ, and they beat them up. So,
yeah. All right, give us the rundown on
Hidden Valley. Hidden Valley is still defeated. They are not undefeated. They are completely defeated. But there is life for Hidden Valley. Well, there was life. They played really well 2 weeks ago and only lost, I think, 38-7. But this past week, I think the final score was like 63-7. But That's 30 points better than some of the scores they had last year.
That's right.
Um, so there, like I said, there's hope. We'll just keep our fingers crossed that they can find someone on the schedule that they can be competitive with. And I still don't know why Tazewell didn't call them up and say, "Hey, we're 2A, and we'd be more than happy to look you up on the season for this, 2-year cycle." I have no idea. Tazewell could have lost to a 4A school and gotten more points. So I don't know.
Barn burner, that's for sure.
Could have been. It'd been like 9-6, or it'd have been like what was it? Was it Monday night? Is 15? It was 15-6 at one point before there's a touchdown even scored in the late in the fourth quarter. Oh my gosh, it was just a field goal fest.
All right. Well, we appreciate you all checking us out on Apple or Spotify. We appreciate you on YouTube. We continue to grow with subscribers there. That just blows my mind. When me and Josh first started this, we talked that we thought Apple and Spotify would be the big boost, which we've reached our 1,000
1,000
download
streams.
mark.
Yeah.
So we appreciate that. But YouTube's got some subscribers and some people watching, so we appreciate that as well. Before we end this, good old question. What are
Yeah.
we gonna eat? And let's make it the Vha Tennessee game.
Okay. So um, the last couple of years, I've always said when you go to like a John Battle game or going to an Abingdon game, I always talked about Melon Mushroom, and Melon Mushroom is closed.
Yeah,
It's
I
shut
know,
down.
man.
Like that pains me because now on Friday nights I go to Blacksburg a lot because my daughter's in gymnastics, and we always hit up like Cabo Fish Taco or Melon Mushroom right there on Main Street. And um, I bet you there won't be anyone in Blacksburg on Main Street on Friday night unless they're just there to drink their sorrows away because the football team is looking rough with an interim coach now. Um, but no, if I'm going to Virginia High and Tennessee High, you can go down onto State Street, but instead of turning onto State Street, um, taking your left on the State Street, take a right, go down to Green Seafood. It's got great food. It's a fishmonger's place, and they actually supply a ton of the places around here with fresh seafood. Cuz's is one of them. Fisher and Company. It's the place to be, and you can get it fresh right there. They'll cook it up for you. They'll fry it. They'll pan sear it, blackened grouper, whatever you want. Greens is the place to be. Follow it up with a little stop at a Blackbird Bakery, get you something sweet, take to the game, and a coffee. Um, it won't be that chilly this Friday night, but it has been here lately. It makes me feel like fall, and yeah, nothing's better than some good seafood from Greens and a little Blackbird Bakery.
So talking about greens also in Tazewell, last year's sponsor, Be Noodled, they get theirs from greens as well. So if you're listening for a fish fry or their steamed pots, hit up Be Noodle for those. But if I'm going to be in Bristol, I thought we were almost going to pick the same place. So go to the State Street red light. Josh told you to turn right. I'm not going to tell you to turn left. I'm going to tell you to go through that light. And as soon as you do, I need you to take a right into Cootie Brown's. They have a phenomenal club sandwich. And if you're only eating it, get a half because you're not going to be able to eat a whole. You can share that sucker. Homemade ranch dressing, it's phenomenal. Can't go wrong with Cootie Brown's. Love that place. It's just right down from the stadium. Both of these places are. So if you're going to go to that game, go check those two restaurants out.
So, um, when I when I used to privately coach, there were a couple times when I was coaching the kid at Tennessee High, and then I was coaching TJ Kitts here in Tazewell. And one night, uh, Tennessee High was playing down in Sullivan County, so I went and watched a, a half of that game, and then I came back to catch Tazewell and Virginia High. And this was right before the Crystal Burger across the street closed. And most people would say that Crystal is terrible, but man, I absolutely love Crystal Burger. And I remember leaving the Tazewell Virginia High game and driving from Bristol all the way to Smith Mountain Lake, where I was going to stay for a long weekend, and getting a sack full of crystals just for the ride. And nothing is more nostalgic for me than watching some football games in Tennessee and some good old Crystal Burgers. So um, no one in my family will let me eat Crystal Burgers anymore. I have to sneak them. And we're going to the Tennessee game on Saturday, so maybe I can sneak me some Crystal Burgers in since I've been thinking about where am I going to eat if I went to a Virginia High football game. I always just think of that old Crystal Burger right across the street. Can't do that anymore, which is probably a good thing, both for my heart and cholesterol and for everyone else that I'm around. But I got to plug some Crystal Burgers, man.
Hey, I like them too. So, one in Pigeon Forge, they moved it. So, but no, I like Crystal Burgers as well. Well, with all that being said, only thing I got to say is Narduzzi talked a lot of crap, and now he's going to play Ole Miss. Not this year, but the next 2 years when he said that West Virginia doesn't want to put him on the schedule. Well, you just didn't want to play Ole Miss, and now you're going to play Ole Miss after you took a loss after talking some crap. So,
Oh, yeah, let's talk about West Virginia. They blew my parlay 2 weeks in a row. So I picked West Virginia to beat Ohio, and I had a 21 game parlay, and I lose one game. I lose one game, one, and that's West Virginia and Ohio. So what did I do this past Saturday? I see West Virginia and Pitt, and I was like, I'm taking Pitt. I lose two games. I lose two games. I won my Tennessee game because I got 3.5 points. Took Tennessee in the points. But one of those losses in my like 20 game parlay, West Virginia.
so really quick, everybody wants to talk crap about us losing to Ohio. Ohio at one point in time was 16-9 with the Buckeyes.
Okay, Pat McAfee, it doesn't matter. It's still Ohio, and you were favored.
We were favored, but knowing what the Mountaineers had and knowing that we're still trying to gel, knowing that this team is the MAC team that won last year, nothing's changed there. I wasn't surprised with that loss. I'm still not. I'm just happy that we got to sing Sweet Caroline and tell them what to eat. So,
Well, you should have won one game and should have lost another, and it wasn't what actually happened.
I'm just glad we beat the rivals. So, you all looked really good and should have pulled yours off too.
Man, feel bad for that kid.
All right. So, we'll see you week 5. We'll be coming to you from this location again. But we appreciate you all. And as the barter says, if you like us, talk about us. If you don't, then keep your mouth shut. Peace out.
See you, go balls.